Hey everybody, and welcome to another Comic Beat Insider, that mashup Zoom pandemic podcast. Heidi McDonald of The Beat and me of the Comic News Insider. Started back in March and we've continued on. My name is Jimmy Aquino with Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture.
I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, the news blog of comics culture.
And I am John Hosch, a regular contributor, I guess, to Comic News Insider, and a New York actor.
Hi, and I'm Stacey Whittle of the podcast Whittle Waffle, and it's nice to be the Brit.
Yes. I wanted to get a Brit in here for this movie. So today we're going to discuss that classic cult hit film, not just a cult film, but it was a hit film from 1981 called Time Bandits. It's directed by Terry Gilliam, or Gilliam, or however you say it, I don't know. But I remember watching this as a kid. I chose this one because as a kid I watched this multiple times and loved it. But I hadn't seen it in 30-something years. But I happened to own it, so I was like, oh, I have this, I can watch it. But it was also on HBO, so you can watch it that way. But yeah, it was just as delightful and fun as I remembered, and dark as I remembered. But yeah. All of you had seen it. We just found out Heidi had never seen it. I assume John and Stacey, you guys have seen it, right?
Yep.
Beforehand. Okay.
Yeah.
Heidi, always giving me crap about not seeing stuff. The tables have turned.
I'm telling you, there's so many things I haven't seen. And so it's just a miracle that you haven't caught me out until now. So, yeah, I had never seen Time Bandits. Of course, I remember when it came out, and I'm a huge Monty Python fan. You know, I can recite entire episodes by heart, which, of course, now is a sign of age, not wit. So, yeah, I remember when it came out. And although it was a hit, I remember the reviews of the time were kind of mixed and talked about they called it uneven.
The darkness of it all.
Darkness, also the ugliness. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this quite a bit. Just Terry Gilliam is obsessed with ugliness and squalor and dirt, and I don't know. I guess
the
something
dark side of the coin, he calls it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I'll be honest. This is a boy's own adventure. I mean, I'm not surprised that a young boy like Jimmy would be, or a young boy would really be into this movie, and it's not very much for girls. Or women, and I don't know, I guess just something about it just didn't appeal to me. And also, that said, there's a lot, even though I love Monty Python so much, I've avoided watching a few things of Monty Python over the years. Like, I didn't see The Meaning of Life until maybe 10, 15 years ago because I didn't want to have it all done, knowing there would be no more Monty Python. I delayed gratification, which is a dangerous thing. And so, I mean, now that I've seen it, of course.
Never delay gratification.
Yes. But now that I've seen it, I'm like, oh, this is like, the next Monty Python film, really. So, why did I wait so long?
Right. How about you guys, Stacey, John, when did you first see it?
I saw it as a kid. So I remember it was one of those ones that was on the telly quite a lot at Christmas time and things. And always seemed to be last a whole afternoon when you were a kid, that film, like the whole day. No. I absolutely loved it, but I was told to my husband about, because I rewatched it last night, and I said, when I was a kid, I didn't laugh. I didn't think it was a comedy, but as an adult, it's very funny. But as a kid, I was like that serious kid sitting watching it without laughing. That's a bit odd, isn't it? But yeah.
Your parents are like, we need to have a talk with Stacey. What's going on? Maybe see somebody professional.
I can actually agree with that though, because this was on heavy rotation on HBO.
Yep.
When HBO first kind of came out, it was like one of their first movies that was on heavy rotation. So as a kid, I got to see it a lot, or I would like tune in and see bits and pieces of it. And like as a kid, I was always confused by this movie because I mean, I think when you're young and you're like trying to like wrap your head around time travel, you might not have learned some of these historical moments. You're just kind of like, what is going on? And it's a very smoky movie. There's it's very dusty and smoky and like Heidi said, it's a bit dirty, and it kind of, so I was always kind of I don't know if I was just kind of like always kind of like watching it with my mouth open and kind of confused, like what's happening? Why is Sean Connery fighting this like minotaur looking thing, and then the giant with the ship?
Oh.
What is happening here?
It's all history, John. You didn't do your
Yeah,
history.
yeah.
But it's interesting because like I was aware of this movie and more so the Adventures of Baron Munchausen before I even knew of Monty Python, because these were like my entryway as a kid, and then when I got into like my teens and stuff, I started to start watching Monty Python, and so it's interesting that this was it was confusing as a kid, but it was it was enjoyable to watch it again like now. Not my favorite of like the Imagination trilogy, but it is the beginning of it. So
yeah, I didn't see I still haven't seen Brazil or Munchausen. I was gonna watch them.
Oh, now hold on. Okay,
so,
now
settle down. I can name 10 movies right now you've never seen. So I was gonna watch them actually this week too, but I just didn't have time. But I agree. I don't remember. I remember watching as a kid, but I don't remember like my reactions. But I think I probably just enjoyed the adventure of it all, the little kid escaping and get away, that thing so much. But I agree with Stacey. Like, there's definitely things I probably didn't pick up as a kid, like especially the little things like Pansy and Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall's characters. Some very adult humor there. Little thing. Do you still have trouble with that? Should you see it? I'm like, oh, I see what's up.
right, yeah.
And so there's some very, very fun. I mean, I laughed a lot in this, but it is very dark, and Gilliam talks about that in interviews about how, he wanted it that way, but how fairy tales. If I can find a quote here, actually, there was a famous a psychologist or something like that who said something about so where he felt the movie was about fairy tales, or Gilliam agreed that the movie is about fairy tales that help a child to adjust, understand their place in the world by creating anxieties in them and teaching them about the existence of good and evil. So that's what he liked about it. And he says that while Sesame Street is lovely, it presents a false image of the world. I prefer to include the dark side of the coin. So it's a little more realistic for a kid,
Well, I mean, the ending, which I'm sure we'll get to. But when I watched this, I was like, oh, holy cow. I wonder why. And, it's funny you say.
Kids were like, yes, freedom.
Yeah, right. It's funny you say it, not having seen, this is part of the Imagination trilogy with Brazil and the Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Now, when, Brazil is a famous case of a movie where there was studio interference. So when the time that movie came out, I was actually living in Los Angeles, working for the Hollywood Reporter. So, we had Brazil all the time. And, I raced out to see Brazil. I could not wait to see this movie that had been, so compromised. And, Baron Munchausen, the same thing. I mean, Baron Munchausen was the most expensive movie made at the time, or it was one of the most expensive movies ever made at the time. And of course, Terry Gilliam is such a great artist, but also really, he must be kind of a bastard to work with, I have to say.
Yes.
Because like George
Stories
Harrison. Yeah. And I mean, this movie was produced by George Harrison, who had also produced The Life of Brian. And
he had issues with his stubbornness.
He did,
Compared him to Lennon a little bit sometimes.
Right, and I mean, George Harrison seems like next to Ringo, the friendly, the lovable, these lovable Beatles, and but he had a lot to say about Terry Gilliam, and the fact that a studio would give money to him to make these movies, like they quickly learned their lesson. But I mean, obviously he's such a great filmmaker. I mean, the lesson was let the guy make the movies he wants to make because he's a genius.
Well, that's my other point about that was just like, well, Brazil was what he wanted to make first. He only made this film because he's like, I need some money, and Brazil was having such a hard time getting put together. So he intended with every intention to make Brazil first. And this sort of came out of nowhere for him, where he came with this idea, what if we had this? What if we had that? And like you said, with Harrison did finance it. but I saw an interview where Harrison was just like, talking to a lot of the Pythons. So, yeah, Gilliam could be kind of, like you said, kind of a bastard, kind of wants his way. Nothing's ever good enough for him. But he's a talented, whatever. But at the same time, it's like, I've always been bothered by that, and I get it. It's your money. It's a studio's money. It's a producer's money. But let the fucking artist be the artist. It's like, let them do their what they're good at. If there's something outrageously going out of budget, that's when you step in. Okay, we can't do that because it's budget wise. If it's just like their idea, so that's why I'm like, Harrison, yes, you're a great artist too in another field, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe let Terry do his thing. So that was I was like worried about. But yeah, Harrison does mention that. Yeah, he was a little bit stubborn, and I think they even say in the song at the end that Harrison wrote and sang, "Dream Away." They say that some of the lyrics are pointed at Gilliam.
Well, now
I'm wondering if that's true or not. Because it can be interpreted like you hear, "Stumble you may with the elementary, lucky you got so far, all you owe is apologies, measure the mystery and style without taking up time, still the handiworks remain, only dream away." So
now wait,
interpreted, could not be.
But let's let I would love the panel's feeling about this, because I also read that it was Gilliam who said, "Oh yeah, I think Harrison wrote that," in reference to me. But I think it could also be interpreted as applying to God, the supreme being in the movie.
Sure.
Like you owe apologies.
I think it's totally to deal with the movie. I don't think Harrison stuck a jab in, but maybe.
But I do think it's interesting that Terry Gilliam chose to take that personally. I think he's got a bit of a God complex and is like, well, you wrote it about me. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that I would agree. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because I can see that. Because he does, even in interviews with Palin, because Palin co-wrote it. Michael Palin of the Pythons co-wrote it. So yeah.
He does have a reputation for being difficult. So the first Monty Python movie, the Monty Python and Holy Grail, which is my favorite one.
Love it.
Terry directed it together, and Terry Jones said he would never do that again. He would never. He was awful, and they ended up fighting and having to be separated. And so yeah, I think that he's as well as being a great art. You have to remember that he's an actual artist, and he probably has that.
An auteur. Yeah. Well, that's what I said at the end. I saw some interviews done right after the film, and all the only Palin and Cleese out of the Pythons appear in it, right? And then so they had Eric Idle and all these other people sort of just talk about it, and Eric, they're all talking about how difficult he was. Sometimes and Eric's like, he's got that American git he's got. Like I took him out, I love him. I took him out to dinner, of course I paid. Like Eric said. But then Terry was like, yeah, I got a little frustrated at the end when I even threatened to burn all the negatives. I'm like, oh my God, dude, Jesus Christ. Calm down. So I could see how people think, yeah, he's a little difficult, maybe. So
yeah. But I was watching an interview with David Warner, who, can I just say, I am like ridiculously in love with, like, he's on. And he always seems like such a nice man when you see him interviewed. And he was saying that there was a lot of really difficult circumstances on the film, and physical circumstances filming this movie, and it was really hard going, and his costume particularly was extremely heavy and he couldn't sit down in it, and he had to have a lean board, and he said and the other cast were like swimming for days, and it was really hard.
Wait, who is this? Who said this?
David Warner was talking about it, and
David
he said nobody complained about it. They all seemed to be it was a really enthusiastic, sort of happy cast from his point of view. He said other people might have different stories, but there seemed to be this excitement and enthusiasm in the cast. And I like to think that's true, because I think that's on the screen, Except for David Gallagher, I hear. David Gallagher, who played the lead, sort of the lead, out of our little peeper.
Oh, you mean David Rappaport? David Rappaport.
Yes,
yeah.
Rappaport as Randall, because they even said Gilliam and everybody was like, yeah, he was kind of a diva. He wanted close-ups. He really took charge of everything, to the point where Kenny Baker and the rest of the guys were so annoyed with him, and Gilliam caught wind of that on set. So they wrote in that scene where they turn on his character because of it. I'm like, that's brilliant. Because he's being such a diva.
I think what's interesting about this movie is that there is, as opposed to some of the other films that we've done, that there's less lore about it, like there's less kind of like the making of the movie must have been so intense, with having little people in the cast and these set pieces, all these cameos and everything. And I was a little surprised. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of interviews with Gilliam, which I unfortunately didn't have time to really delve into. So, but I feel but I feel like Gilliam's a little bit of an unreliable narrator about some of this stuff too, because some of the quotes that he has about it seem to be kind of based on him. Like him feeling a little settling some scores still, or feeling, a little.
Well, I think John said it. Yeah,
I think
God complex.
Yeah, I mean, not a God complex doesn't, but I think he feels perpetually misunderstood a lot of the times, and is misunderstood most of the time. So he's not wrong,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. One of the lores behind it though is the Sean Connery casting. Whereas there's a great story you guys probably read where they had written in the script something like, and then he pulls his helmet off, and it's Sean Connery or an actor of cheaper stature.
Yeah.
And then the co-producer David O'Brien, is it? Yeah, or O'Brien, is it David? It's something O'Brien. Yeah, he was buddies, apparently golfing buddies with Connery, and Connery was like, I love the Python, sure, I'll do it, but he had a limited time, so they had to shoot his scenes really quickly. That's why he was supposed to be in the final battle scene leading the charge and was going to die instead of Fidget, but he wasn't available. He shot, but apparently Connery also suggested the ending of him coming back as the fireman. And then they just got lucky one day because they were trying to work out the ending and they couldn't really figure it out. And Connery was in town doing something. They're like, can we remember that idea you had? Can we just shoot something? Like they hadn't even written that scene yet. Can we just shoot you as a fireman? And kind of just threw it together. I think they shot it in like a parking lot. Sorry, car park, Stacey. And and they did that and ended up using it, a very Wizard of Oz type thing, I guess. But I thought that was really cool that, and Sean seemed like he was having a blast in that scene, playing Agamemnon, so that was kind of cool. And his short little, I guess, 2-week shoot it was for him.
So, but I mean, Jimmy, what was it that you loved about this movie so much the first time you saw it? Was it the boy's own adventure, or?
No, I think it was, well, like I said, I think it was the escapism of like, because it's also got a little, like many of these movies you talked about recently, has a little metaphor about like consumerism to it, because his parents want everything new. They want all the new gadgets and all the freaking furniture is all covered in plastic, and all that stuff. And he's like, they don't pay attention to him, and they're like, he's like, hey, can I? And they're like, oh, we gotta be this. The neighbors can cook their steak and their beef bourguignon in 8 seconds, So that's all they seem to care about. So he escapes into his world of history. He studies a lot of history in his toys. So it didn't take him very long to like, I'm gonna follow these dudes that just busted into my room out of nowhere in the middle of the night because he wanted to get away. And that's something I was like, I mean, I didn't have an unhappy childhood, I don't think, it was like, but it was just I enjoyed the idea of adventure and going off, and like, especially I was a history nerd as well, especially Greek history, things like that. And I was like, oh, how fun would that be to like go back in time to see those things? That'd be great. Which is probably why I like History of the World Part 1, also came out the same year. And also, of course, Bill and Ted. So I think it was just the adventure of it. I really saw myself as like, I want to be that kid going off with these crazy little people and just seeing all this weird, crazy stuff, just have a blast, with it. Not because as a kid, you're fearless. You don't think about the danger. You're like, yeah, I'll jump in the hole. Why not? That's cool.
Yeah, well, I love that Kevin, the protagonist, has the wherewithal. Like he sees these fantastic creatures coming through his bedroom one night. So the next night he is prepared. He has packed his little bag with a Polaroid camera so he can take pictures. Very smart. And other necessities he might need for an adventure. So he definitely has that pluckiness. I mean, this movie is so evocative of other things. I mean, obviously there's a lot to do with Willow, which we all also talked about, which is compared to Time Bandits, the ultimate Disney movie where everybody turns out okay and happy in the end.
Not here.
Not here. Oh no, not here. No. But also, I think of The Princess Bride and Harry Potter. I mean, the kid who's got the materialistic parents and lives in his fantasy world. So a lot of evocative, some would call them what's the Carl Jung word? Now I can't use them.
Yeah, hero's journey.
Hero's journey stuff,
Yeah.
Or now they're called tropes.
Well done, John.
Yes, they're called tropes
Sounds
now.
like chapter
or
5 of Jung's.
Yeah, but I like to jump on what Jimmy was saying as a little kid. This movie, I think, as I was watching it, like as your young mind is firing so fast, you kind of mix this in with like the Ewok adventures as well, and especially like I was watching this and I was like, oh, I thought that was a never-ending story. Oh, oops, and then you kind of mash all the movies together sometimes, because I do feel like, for some reason, for me, this and Neverending Story have like the same kind of visceral feel to it. That one definitely way
Neverending Story or not.
Well,
yeah,
but that one is definitely more fantasy, and there is fantastical things that happen that are also kind of grounded in reality and historical events as well in this. So
I think as well, like as a kid, I absolutely loved this film, and if you'd asked us to choose between this one and the one we talked about last time I was here, Willow, I would have picked Time Bandits every time. And I think it was that fantastic and imagination, and the fact that this little kid actually, there's no parental influence. So even though the little people are older than him, they're adults, he's more like the adult. He hasn't got anyone telling him what to do, or he's so in charge of his own destiny, sort of thing, until the sort of, I can never say it, the Sean Connery, he sort of gets a good parent, but he's having all these adventures with nobody telling him he can't, or he has to brush his teeth, or eat his sprouts, or whatever awfulness it is. And that fantastic challenge.
He is a Mary Sue, 100%. 100% Mary Sue, because it's like these Time Bandits who have been doing this, these helpers and but he's always the one who's like, oh, what if we could do the map? And, hey, well, I know how to do this better than you do. I mean, he is absolutely the adult in the group and, the competent one. So.
Yeah. Well, also there's interesting casting about him. Did you guys read about that?
Yeah.
Apparently his brother came in to audition, and he was kind of reluctant about auditioning and was, I guess, really quiet and a little more shy. And Terry was like, something about kid actors, but he was quiet, and I kind of wanted to explore that more. That's why he went with how pissed off his brother was. Like, what the hell? That was my part.
Yeah, but he never acted again, right?
Yeah, he's never done anything really.
One of the things.
And that was it. And like he did a couple, like one or two other things, and he got into like, is he doing music now or something? I looked him up. I think he's doing some sort of music thing.
I don't know. I don't know if that was real.
Yeah.
Terry Gilliam probably lied about that too.
Yeah, you're right. Now I'm questioning everything. God damn it. But yeah, he was good. The kid was, had a good head. He was very subtle. I guess that's what Terry liked in him. So that was cool. And I thought it was interesting too, where Gilliam was talking about like using little people. Because it was sort of a trend in Hollywood for a while. There was like Under the Rainbow and things going on, which I liked that movie. That movie did not do well, but I actually remember that movie. I liked that one a lot. So they thought like, oh, you kid, this movie's not going to, there's no way it's going to do well. They can't bring in an audience. But they were wrong. And then a lot of people were saying, I don't know if it was Gilliam himself or other people said like they represented the Pythons actually, each character.
Yeah.
Where like it was like supposedly, like the nice one, Fidget, is Palin. The self-appointed leader, Randall, is Cleese. The acerbic one, Strutter, is Eric Idle. The quiet one, Og, is Graham Chapman. The noisy rebel, Wally, is Terry Jones. And the nasty, filth-loving one, Vermin, is Gilliam himself. I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That pans out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about though some of the incredible set pieces. Like this movie is so episodic,
well designed.
But so as I was watching it, I was thinking that a lot of the movies we've talked about, this one is really just imagination. Like the visuals are just like the sheer imagination of it are kind of the most powerful part of it. But the script, I have to, yeah, I mean, it's Gilliam and Michael Palin. I mean, the script is absolutely brilliant as well. But, you know, there seems to have been a lot of improvisation or last minute changes. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, it is full of incredible scenes, indelible scenes. You know, what are some of the favorite ones of the, you know, those who've loved this movie or grew up with this movie, I should say, unlike myself?
Stacey,
I was going to say, I think my favorite bit, and it's probably everybody's favorite bit, is the Robin Hood bit.
Yeah,
and obviously,
so good.
that probably was the easiest from a set point of view, isn't it? Like some wood, that'll do. But it's the comedy of that is just so funny. Apparently, the guy who was the head robber, it was his idea to make everything he said unintelligible.
Yeah.
But the comedy timing of the guy with him, that bit when John Cleese says he's punching all the poor people in the face, and I cry and laugh, and I don't even know why it's funny. It's just funny. And he says, John Cleese says, "Is this really necessary?" And he goes like, "Oh," and the guy goes, "Yeah," he said, "It is." And the comedy timing of that sounds, it's just so good. It's so funny. And then of course is Duke of Kent. "Oh, so you're a robber, are you?" And my favorite line in the whole film goes,
like some smarmy politician.
My favorite line in the whole film is Purvis. And "Oh, how long have you been a robber?" And he goes, 4 for 1.
Yeah.
4 for 1. Surely good. Yeah, he's like a smarmy politician. I love that, and I love that they like had Marion be the head robber, you know, like, and but that's also a take what Gilliam, I think, was saying, how like there's consequences for everything. Hey, you get all this free rich stuff, but you're gonna get a punch in the face. So goodness there has to be a balance, I think, is what Gilliam was
I mean, it's definitely the most like a Monty Python sketch. I mean, Cleese had played Dennis Moore, you know, Dennis Moore, riding through the wood. I tell you, I know the whole thing by heart.
Settle down. We'll do another podcast on that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, of course, he's absolutely hilarious. And, you know, Palin and Shelley Duvall.
Palin was supposed to play it. And then, but then this is where the studio stepped in. Said, no, we need a bigger name. And Cleese is, of course, probably the biggest name out of them all at the time. And so they got Cleese, and then Palin. So that's why Palin wrote himself in as the other character. Vincent, is it? Or something like that. Vincent and Pansy scenes, yeah. He knew those were great scenes, too. Anyway, John, what were some of your favorite?
I really loved the ogres on the ship. That was like something that it's like that's probably like super high fantasy, and it's so funny because like watching it again, I'm like, man, he really looks like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, just older.
Yeah.
But also as a kid, being a fan of Who's the Boss, this was like, for me, it was like having Catherine Hellman be the Mrs. Ogre. I was like, that's a familiar face. I know who that is. That's Mona. So I was like, that's kind of why it's also memorable. But I think like ogres and fantasy type things, like that really stuck with me. But then again, like I mentioned before, like the Sean Connery scene for me was super weird because I was like, why are they all of a sudden in this new setting? Why is this like, and like the way that the Minotaur is like pretty much just like a rotting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like a rotting bull head. I was like, is that alive? Is that a guy with a mask? He's making weird sounds.
He's living in the sand. Come on.
Did he take his mask off or did he cut his head off? Like I was like, it was. That's one of those ones that's like kind of gets etched in your head, and you're like, I'm so confused as to why this. Well, and then you're like, why does Agamemnon have like this thick accent?
They all did back then.
Yeah,
I think it is just incredible how much is packed into this movie. I mean, it's a little under 2 hours long, but like each set piece in it is like a whole, like could be a whole nother movie. I mean, it starts out with this whole Napoleon thing, and then there's a puppet show in the Napoleon thing, and then there's a song and dance number with the the Time Bandits come out and sing and dance, and like you I think what's really incredible about this movie is it really gets you invested in every single character, no matter how fleeting their presence. Like you care about them. They're so unique and individual. They have a story, and I think that's a testament to the script, really, which is a real Python thing. That the supporting characters all have just agency, I guess you could say. But yeah, and then it goes into the Robin Hood, which I said is like a sketch, and then you're right, it's like hard cut. Oh, we're in the desert, and Sean Connery's fighting a rotting bullhead, and court intrigue. This part reminded me of
time portals, man. Come
the
on.
man who would be king.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mean, like I said, the brilliant little like Napoleon scene, like him constantly complaining about like other world leaders that were short. He was only 5'1" and he was only 5'2" and 4'11". Brilliant little bits like that, just brilliant. But I could say one of my favorite scenes was probably the most unset set. Like in the cages, in the total blackness.
I was gonna say that
total blackness in these cages. And the swinging of the rope to get to the other side, and then all this other stuff. Like it's such a tense moment, but also a really cool moment to see these tiny little guys in this giant cage in blackness, and then we see yet again. He comes back, a young Jim Broadbent as the game show host guy, who comes back in at the. You're like, oh my god. But yeah, that was a really that moment I remember sticking my head as a kid. Also. To adulthood, like I remember the cages and the swinging from it and all the other stuff. So yeah, that was
that's actually the scene that I was going to call out was the because I guess the last quarter or third of the movie suddenly throughout the whole movie we see the Time Bandits reveal that they used to work for the Supreme Being, and then they got demoted to be these time thieves. But then we also see Evil in his castle with a horrible manicure. And then they finally, in the last part, they get to the evil castle, and then all of a sudden, another hard cut because they're like, what happened to Wally? Like they're swinging on these ropes, like you say. All of a sudden, it's a tense adventure movie with survival, and you think, all of a sudden, you're like, holy shit, they could die. They're like they think that Wally has died, and you've gone from this really rollicking kind of social satire adventure to there really is death in this movie, and the stakes are so much higher. So I mean the way the tone of this film goes up and down is extraordinary.
Yeah, I agree. I think like when it leads into the final battle, like you meet more. Like in Evil was really funny too. Like there's some really funny moments, but you also notice he had an obsession with technology, where he wanted things like that. But yeah, like watching the guys always running from the Supreme Being. You're just like, okay, it's God, and Evil, I guess, is devil, whatever like that. But yeah, it was like you said, the death became a thing because we're originally Sean Connery's character was supposed to die, and then Fidget just gets a pillar falls on him. He's like, you're like, what?
They killed R2D2.
I know. I was like, what the hell? Like, come on, you can fly away to other R2.
Stacey, what were you gonna?
I was gonna say that it's interesting how those beats play out as well, because a lot of the moments with David Warner being the evil genius before that final scene are quite comedic as well. And he has another one of my very favourite lines where one of his minions asks him a question and he blows him up and then he goes, a good question. And his comedy timing is brilliant. And all of his beats before that are quite funny. And then all of a sudden he's really scary because he's killing them and he's really serious. And that change in pace, which comes with the sort of change in it gets really dark to look at, and the real peril, you only really feel it at that point from everyone. From the evil genius as well. That's the point he gets. Even though he killed people before, it was funny, wasn't it? When he's blown, and they're all green.
He's just like,
please kill me, bastard.
Yeah. But and then the weird, we're used to the hand, blast, and then suddenly we get this freaking thing coming out of his head. You're like, what is happening? It's like this giant thing that's like, I'm like, what? It just goes right back in. I'm like, what a weird choice, but way cool choice that they did for that. I was like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we mentioned the scene where the ship is being lifted out of the water, and then suddenly we see it's on the head of a giant, and the giant, which is totally 100% Gilliam's animation for Monty Python. I mean, you know, he took paper, which was paper collage, the easiest kind of animation to do in a way, you know, and now he's doing it on a set with people and models and everything. And it's kind of mind boggling. There's a lot about this movie that kind of blew my mind. I have to be honest.
Well, about the giant, apparently, instead of looking for a big, tall guy, which they started to, he said they got somebody that was sort of shorter and a little more portly. And just the way they shot it, the angle, it made him look, Terry was like, this works better because it makes him look so big and giant like. So yeah.
Sorry, John.
Oh, go ahead, Stacey.
It's interesting as well because there's much talk about Steven Spielberg and how he shot E.T. from that child's level, but Terry Gilliam did that in this film too, so that everything looks smaller and bigger as well. So, and I think really added to the feel of it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to mention. Yeah, is that he made sure to shoot everything from low to up to give that feel, but also the two characters in the hut that the giant crushes actually show up. They were actually in a one of the animated things that Terry did in a previous Monty Python.
They were in the Meaning of Life.
Yeah. So,
I didn't
so
know that.
it's a little throwback to his Python days as well.
Very cool. Did you also know another thing? I thought apparently, because there's 6 of them, right? And Kevin's the 7th, but it's like there's 6 of the little people. Apparently, there's originally going to be 7. And he's either seen or definitely mentioned in the movie, though. But Horseflesh, yes. And then, yeah, what a great name, Horseflesh. And then, but like apparently Gilliam was worried about, you know, Disney coming down if they had 7 dwarves. So that's where like, no, we got to make it 6. And they mention him, but then they say, oh, maybe he's that one that's with evil. That might be Horseflesh who turned or whatever like that, or got turned to the other side. But yeah, I thought it was they couldn't do 7 because of the Disney thing. I mean, you got to be scared of Disney even back then. Come on, they're all powerful.
Yeah, I think that could be a story, but it could also be logical. I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Sorry, John, I'm determined to interrupt you.
It's all good.
My reason for extra. It's the reason I'm here. Say that the cast, particularly the little people, are amazing. It's not just that they've been picked because
really
of
good
their
actors.
height. Yes, I have a particular fondness from Jack Purvis, and he was a comedy double act with Kenny Baker, who was also incredible in this film, and how lovely to see his actual face, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought that's so important as well, because that could have, if those characters weren't perfect, the film wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's so funny because that's exactly what I was going to say too. Is that you really every one of the bandits gets enough time for you to get to know them and for you to care about them. Whereas I would say if you look at like the Hobbit trilogy that came out, I could care. I couldn't tell you. Besides the one that looked like George Harrison, I don't really know any other. I don't know their names. I don't really care about them. They were just kind of like interdispersed, you know, like you didn't care.
And Pippin, no, that rode the giant, no, all right.
Yeah. Well, as a gigantic Tolkien fan, I did know, but I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you know, I have never rewatched the Hobbit movies, and maybe we should do that for this. A torture. It could be the unpleasant. No, I mean, it's funny because obviously Peter Jackson is very influenced by Terry Gilliam, or maybe, you know, they're just the same kind of filmmakers in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I haven't seen Terry Gilliam's recent films, but you know, I mean, I think after the disaster of Munchausen, which they ran out of money. That's what it was. They wouldn't give him the money. He had that ending scene that was supposed to be the most wild, crazy ending, and they wouldn't give him the money. So they just are standing there, you know, it's brought down quite a bit. But you know, then he kind of rehabbed himself in Hollywood terms. And, you know, he made The Fisher King, which was really, you know, wonderful, brilliant movie. And you know, so and then he's gone on. He's kind of made he's never made it. They've never quite given him the budget to make the movie. Although there was Dr. Parnassus, which again I haven't seen, but it took years and years to get made.
Well, also,
I mean, look at the
Don Quixote,
one.
yeah, Don
My God.
Quixote, yeah.
I mean, he just couldn't finish it, so they had to turn it into a documentary about how he couldn't finish it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The Imaginarium of Dr. Panassus, though, looks like it's related to this film, which looks like it's related to Baron Munchausen. They could be like a set almost. There's a very similar feel to that one, to this one. Yeah.
yeah, but I think Gilliam. I think what is so interesting what we're all saying though about how like you care about each one of the Time Bandits, you care about all the characters, and like I said, I think Peter Jackson started out as that kind of filmmaker, but he really has become so in love with technology as it's gone on. Like, and as you go from the Lord of the Rings trilogy to the Hobbit trilogy, you see the people becoming smaller and smaller and smaller part of the film, and with the result that you care less and less and less.
I think it's really interesting that you say that, actually, Heidi, because that Michael Palin should get more credit for that, because that was the thing that he loved to do. He wrote the character bits, as he called it, the little bits. Gilliam did the big bits, but the characterization and the character interaction, that's Michael Palin. So it's not just Michael Palin, because you've got an outstanding cast all the way through here with some amazing cameos, which we've touched on a little bit, but there's some just outstanding, perfect cameos in this film. But I think Michael Palin should probably get more credit than me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, not to mention just for his scenes with Shelley
Duvall.
Duvall. They're brilliant. My God, the Titanic scene, the freaking and then the
But like
the Robin Hood scene is just random and hilarious.
So in researching this, there's a story out there where when when they were shooting and when the Time Bandits are falling into the when they're falling into the Robin Hood scene, they built a scaffolding for them to jump off of and like to land around her, and they didn't know how to do it, so Terry actually got up on the scaffolding and and just jump off and you'll land here. So he jumps up and lands smack dab on and like crush
Shelley. Yeah.
But like you've got
like ears problems.
But it's like you've got everything that she went through with Kubrick, and then you've got Terry Gilliam landing
falling on her. Right?
What a movie career she's had.
Yeah.
But they were so funny. I wanted more of them. Like I want a separate movie. Well, each little video was its own separate movie. I wanted a separate movie with just those two characters, Pansy and is it Vincent? Am I saying? I keep forgetting the name. Is it? But it's like.
It's like like a running Monty Python. A lot of Monty Python episodes had callbacks or kind of recurring plot lines where things would come back, and so you could see how they took the sketch format was already becoming part of a larger narrative. So when they did the movies, then they became sketches, kind of like set pieces that there was a narrative, and it's really interesting how they go from between the two blackout sketches to making an actual comedy film. And Monty Python, The Holy Grail, one of my top 10 movies of all time.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
have memorized every single line, but the ending is such it's a cop-out ending, right? But a perfect ending at the same time. Literally a cop-out. Yeah.
I want to say I think this movie stuck with me so much because of the whole what we talked about earlier, the balance of things, like the balance of life. Like you can't just have good, you have to have evil. And I feel like I always, maybe it's also my former Catholic upbringing, probably had a lot to do with that too. But where it's like I always find myself making deals with myself. I don't know if you guys ever did that. Well, then let's say like I would like be injured, and I would like, oh, my hand hurts really bad. Oh, I wish my hand would heal. But if that means my toe hurts, that's fine, or something like that. You know what I mean? I had to make these weird little deals with myself when something bad happened or something good. Like I always knew that, okay, if I win $1 million, then I must lose this. I always felt I had to lose something if I gained something. I wonder if I got it from that movie. This movie is, I'm like, that's still to this day I do that. I still do these bargains with myself of like, well, man, if I got that, then I'd be okay if I lost that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, the Robin Hood scene is the Robin Hood scene is a perfect example of that.
Right,
like you got to get punched in the face to get some money.
Yeah, that's what I feel like all the time. Like, well, that's why I have a lot of pessimism sometimes. Where I'm like, well, I'm gonna win, but then I'm gonna get fucking jacked in the face afterwards. So
Yeah, but my house is going to burn down. So yeah.
yeah, but whatever. I guess all right.
An interesting thing as well with things not always appearing how they seem. So things like the Supreme Being as well, who's terrifying for the first part of the film. Really flipping scary, that disembodied head with the Wizard of Oz type voice. And then when he finally appears, and it's Sir Ralph Richardson, who's like the most, he's amazing, isn't he? But he's not scary. He's not terrifying.
Just a kind old man. Like, yeah, whatever.
And it's smart. So that's kind of an unexpected reveal as well. As to say the whole thing was an experiment he was doing.
Yeah. He apparently changed lines a lot too. Like he took that role very seriously. He would like change lines and said, "No, God wouldn't say that."
Well, yeah, you ought to know, Sir Ralph Richardson. You are our expert.
Ralph Richardson absolutely.
It was his idea to put all the evil in the post box as well. That was his idea.
And like you said, David Warner is just fucking genius. Like, what a great actor. I've so many things that we've all seen him in. He's brilliant in, but like, he just like seemed to have deliciously ate that role up. And it was offered first to Jonathan Pryce, apparently, because they were trying to work on Brazil together. They wanted him, but then Jonathan at the time was busy, so David Warner got cast, and he was great. He just looks like he's having a ball, like playing this evil kind of role, but just silly evil, really fun.
When the little one was tiny, he went to a convention without us, which I feel like was grounds for divorce, but never mind. But he got to meet David Warner, and he said to him, "My wife just thinks you're the most beautiful man in the world." He went, "Of course she does."
Amazing.
He signed a photo for us to bring home, but my husband said he was just the nicest, most humble, funny, lovely man. It was really, and that's exactly how you would imagine him as well, wouldn't he? Even though he is the evil, the ultimate evil.
For sure. Okay, I think we should get to the ending and talk about that. I'll let Heidi go on what we were going to say. Like,
oh no, go ahead. No.
Yeah. So the ending obviously is very controversial because, again, not a happy ending. It's like he gets, like God comes and saves the day in a sense, and the little people go back to work for him. And they're like, no, he's got to stay. Then he wakes up in his own house, little Kevin, to a fire where through the smoke, dreamy Sean Connery appears to save him and take him away. But then he realizes, he finds the picture. Oh, it did happen. But then his parents touch this piece of evil and they blow up. And that's the end of the movie, basically. You're like, what the fuck?
And what shocked me, I had no idea I was going to have this downer ending. And, again, the not being from England, having this Harry Potter. I mean, it's very, very, it's very much like the Dursleys, Kevin's family. And even you pull back on the suburb and you see all these English people just standing out in their bathrobes. And they all seem like, oh, it's great. Kevin came home and they put out the fire and Sean Connery saved the day. I mean, it's like, whereas Kevin is sort of like just doesn't even know what to say, sort of like the moviegoer, oh, you've lost everything in your whole life. And they even show his beloved toys burning up. So it's not like anything is left to the imagination.
Yeah. You had a great adventure, but guess what? Say goodbye to your parents.
You have that moment, don't you, just then, where you think, well, did it really happen? Because that big end battle, all of the things that appear are all toys in his bedroom, including the background are Lego. You can see them like huge bits of Lego. So you have that feeling of, oh, well, maybe it's not real and he is dreaming. And then even when everything explodes, you think, oh, he's definitely dreaming. And then he lifts his Polaroids out and it did happen. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then Sean Connery gives him a little wink.
Yeah, I do a little wink. It's like, so now he's going to go live with the fireman Sean Connery now, maybe? And
I felt that was the cruelest blow of all. Because like the previous scene, I mean, that is all part and parcel of when the Supreme Being shows up and Kevin asks him, is like, you killed all those people. It's like, well, I had to, see if this worked. I had to test out these things I made. And so, it's not a pro-religion movie at all.
No, because he even questions, like Kevin's like, why does there have to be evil?
A little Philip Pullman ending
Yeah.
here. And, I thought Sean Connery's wink was not a reassuring wink at all. It was like, yeah, guess what, kid? Life can be shit.
Yeah, life sucks. Get used to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the reason for your whole journey, to let you know that life sucks.
He's not going to live with Sean Connery because Sean Connery's
No, yeah. He's like, peace out. You get one day with me. Bye. I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of this movie and Brazil and the Adventures of Baron Munchausen as the imagination of a boy, a man, and an old man, I feel like the end is kind of like, well, you're grown up now. Like you can't rely on your parents. You know everything that they provided for you is gone. You have to make it on your own. So time to grow. Like all your toys have to be, throw away your toys, and it's kind of like, look at this great imaginative adventure you had. Now grow up.
Yeah.
Kind of, which is sad, kind of.
I wonder if this is because we are grown-ups, because when you're a kid, you're kind of more literal, aren't you? Because you think, well, his parents are horrible and they're dead now. That seems fair. That's right.
Yeah. Well, that's what Gilliam said was why he fought for that ending, because apparently, and you guys may have read the story too, but it's like I heard it, was during a screening, there were some issues with the projector. So they had to redo it. It took forever to fix, 3 different times. It kept breaking. And finally, so the audience is getting restless, of course. It's probably been half an hour, or whatever. They're like, we're seeing this movie. You're going to, So finally it gets going. And at the end, people filled out the cards. And, but they go to a kid. The first thing the kid says, what's your favorite part? He's like, the parents blew up. And then, but everybody apparently filled out their cards, those little cards that said, what was your favorite part? The ending. And he thinks people, again, maybe a story, but he thinks people wrote it because they were so annoyed that they sat so long to wait for the movie to start that they were just glad it was done. So the producers were all like, the studio were like, no, we can't end it with them blowing up. And he's like, look at these cards. Everybody wants it to be this way. Who knows, again, if that's the real story, but that's what he claims. That's how he won and got his ending. So who knows? It's fun. If it's true, it's funny, it's fun, but who knows? So that's why we got our parents to blow up kids, all right?
That's it.
Did you know they also made a Marvel adaptation like they did back in the day of any of those?
Yes, and
it looks like this.
Whoa!
So, I decided to randomly look online for it. Midtown Comics had it for $2.50. So I had to go to work the other day, and it's right by my work, and I ordered it, had it delivered there, and I went and picked it up the other day. It's nothing. It doesn't add anything to it. It's just really fun.
Who's it? But it's by really good people, right?
Yeah, it's who's that? Sorry? Yeah, it's I'm trying to find it in my notes instead of looking at
you have the book. You have the book. Look at the credits. Look at the credits of the damn book.
Open the book.
It's sacred. I don't want to open this. But I thought it was interesting. It has a list of the cast on the inside. So it's also, the credits are written really weirdly. It's they're way down on the bottom. Writer S.J. Parkhouse. Artist David Lloyd and John Stokes. They're credited first.
Yeah.
But they're credited way down at the bottom. Here's the cast, and then they're down here. The artist.
Yeah, but David Lloyd,
the best thing too. Look at the Star Wars ad in the back. Look at that. That's really cool.
Oh my God! I wish they had another copy. I'm so jealous.
Oh, they might. I don't know if they did. No, I ordered it from the warehouse, so they had it delivered to the Times Square store. So they might have another one.
That's the best thing about old comics, man. Are the ads? I love looking at those ads. That and the smell. I love the smell of old comics.
Yeah, I literally was beforehand. I almost picked up and go, my nose gonna look weird in front of them.
Something today's children will never know. So sad.
Yeah, they won't. That's for sure. What else? So there was something about the ending I wanted to say. The other Gilliam quotes. Sorry, go ahead.
Monty Python themselves, all of them, are kind of bad at ending stuff.
Yes,
and I wonder if
Holy Grail.
We're done now. That's it. And I wonder if there's a little bit of that as well. It sounds like he fought for it, but I don't know how else they would have ended it. He's not a really sunshine and roses type of person, Gilliam, is he?
Well, I think that comes from sketch, being a sketch comedy writers. I mean, you don't really have to, end a sketch. You could just cut it whenever it stops being funny. So, but yeah, I mean, Gilliam,
SNL should learn that.
so this trilogy of the imagination should be called a trilogy of, controversial endings because, Brazil famously also had a downbeat ending and the studios were like, no way, you just can't, children's fantasy film, horrible ending. Oh, well, I guess we got to go with that. Adult satire on materialism. Oh no, it's got to have a happy ending. So, yeah, well, there's so many different versions that got cut. And then obviously with Baron Munchausen, he didn't even get to film the ending he wanted to make.
Oh, so this is what I was trying to find. So apparently Gilliam wanted audience to take away. Good artists providing stimulus for their own imagination, make your own decisions on it. And he said, young boys like the ending of the parents blowing up. Young girls were really worried about the little boy left on his own. And adults seemed most worried about the film and wanted things like mapped out for them. Like, here's what's coming next. Here's what's coming next. Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. Yes, girls are like, yeah, like, no, that poor little boy. What's going to happen?
I know.
Kevin.
Kevin, or whatever. Oh, maybe Home Alone was up. maybe this is a prequel to Home Alone.
Kevin alone.
Kevin left on his own.
So I think the comic book is just about the only spinoff of this. I mean, there was an option for a TV show, a Time Bandits TV show a few years ago, but
no, last year it was announced with Taika Waititi.
Oh, yeah.
Still, it was Apple TV, right?
So I think so.
Yeah, he's going to co-write and direct it. And it's supposedly still, and Gilliam's kind of at first wasn't sure about it, but then he met him and said, yeah, he's cool. I'm okay with it. After he saw Jojo Rabbit. But I haven't heard any updates on it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like, Taika Waititi is like super hot, like Guillermo del Toro. Like he seems like he's signed up to half the projects at Hollywood at one time or another. Yeah. So I don't know I think we'll see Willow. I think we'll see that Willow Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we do.
I did read that they tried to actually do a Time Bandits 2, but unfortunately some of the Time Bandits passed away and they were like, we're not going to move forward without all of them. So they lost like 3 of them, unfortunately passed away as he finished the script and was like, well, I can't do anything with this now. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are apparently also some deleted scenes that were never that may never see the light of day because they think the film was destroyed. There was like a bank robbery, the only one that would take place in the future. There's supposedly a bank robbery in 27th century. I would love
to see that, man.
And they also one where they got caught in these giant spider webs and came across these 2 old spider ladies that caught them.
Gilliam cut. Gilliam cut. Gilliam cut.
There was a Forest of Hands as well, which they started to make, and that got cut too.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. These all sound like things that I've seen in like Labyrinth or or if you guys have seen Crawl, like there's like big spiders in Crawl.
How many movies were influenced by this? So that's what I'm saying. I was like, maybe Bill and Ted was, maybe like maybe many other things were, like came back to this traveling through time type. Not that it's a new thing, traveling through time, but still, it's just like. It does hit every different, different eras and different whatever. And I do wonder because they were released at the same time. And I love History of the World Part 1 so much. That's another movie I've seen a million times. And I probably watched it when I was way too young, way too many times. It was just, it would quote at school and probably get in trouble for it. But yeah, I wonder if they were like, even aware of each other as they were shooting, like you do, like, oh, you're doing one of your different levels of time. Hey, I'm doing different periods of time as well, like that. It's sort of like there is nowadays where movies compete, about like not the same, kind of the same idea, at the same time. So curious if Mel Brooks and David Gilliam ever like crossed paths,
It's funny thinking of a lot of people crossing paths as Terry Gilliam because he seems like such a character, like such a one of a kind. In fact, I think this movie defies the remake part of it. There's no point ever possibly, you could not ever remake this movie. It's just like, I mean,
what a great segue, because I think I could remake it. And as usual, I'd like to provide my cast that I think I would cast it as. Today. I'm not
be quite a long list.
Yeah, I cut it down a little, still kind of long, but I cut it down a bit. So for young Kevin, I want to gender swap. There's a young actress called Megan Liu. She's probably, I could probably show you a picture of her. She's probably 11 or 12 now. And she was young Jessica in the, oh, no, it's not it. No, is that, where can I find her? No, it's not her. You can kind of see her there.
Okay.
So she was in she was in a great episode of Timeless. She had a really great role in that. She was in like I said, Fresh Off the Boat, you know, and then she was in an episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So it'd be kind of cool to follow a young girl as she goes through this time. And then as the little people, there's a great actress, a little person named Meredith Eaton, who she's been a MacGyver for years now.
Oh.
She's actually one of the leads on MacGyver. Why are these pictures not? Oh, I have to
You need to share your screen, Jimmy. There you go. Jimmy will learn how to share screen someday on Zoom.
There's Megan. There's Megan. Okay, so then I got to go back to it. Okay. So Meredith she's a great actress. She's been working on MacGyver for years now. In CIS, she had a big role in Boston Legal. She'd be great as sort of the David Rappaport Randall character, the leader in a sense. I thought it would be fun to bring Warwick Davis in to play Kitty Baker's part as Fidget, because they're kind of that, you know, little Star Wars connection there. Tony Cox as Strutter. Because Tony Cox, of course, is in Bad Santa, those movies as well. Also Willow. Sam Humphrey as Og. Sam Humphrey was Tom Thumb in The Greatest Showman. And Martin Kleba, who was in those Pirates of the Caribbean movies, can play Wally. And I think it would be really funny to get Peter Dinklage to come play Vermin, because it's just like him eating everything in sight, which I think would be kind of funny.
He'd probably want to play evil, though.
Yeah, I think.
See someone of his stature, not his actual stature, but it is like present. Like, it would be really funny to have him in this smaller role.
Oh, totally.
That's a cameo. As Agamemnon, the fireman, you also need somebody of Sean Connery's, you know, gravitas, this actor. I would go Ken Watanabe. Would be great, I think. As Evil, I would go with George Takei, just because he'd be great. That voice, come on, that'd be amazing. Like, you know, you're like, oh my. Awesome. In the Pansy and Vincent roles, I want to reunite the Fresh Off the Boat couple, Constance Wu and Randall Park, because they have such great chemistry together as it is. I think they'd be so great in those little scenes together. As Napoleon, another little swap here. I think Awkwafina would be hilarious as Napoleon. She'd be so great. As the Supreme Being, because Ariana Grande did say God is a woman, and I believe her. Michelle Yeoh would be fantastic as Supreme Being.
Everything she should be anyway.
Yeah. She should.
Yeah,
she should be. He is Supreme Being.
And just the last two real quick. Robin Hood, of course, John Cleese was this, you know, the great cameo. I think let's stick with John Cho. He would be awesome. John Cho. And if not John Cho, John Hoche.
Yes, there you go. Always.
There you go, John
Always
Hoche.
Recasting.
I just want to be the guy who punches everybody.
Yeah,
there you
you'd
go.
be perfect.
And then I'll be the ogre, because I can relate to the back problems. So that was very identifiable with me. And finally, the director, since he's attached to it recently, we never know what happened. Let's give it to Taika Waititi. Let's give him a go at it. I think he'd do a great job.
He's the natural. He actually is a natural. Yeah. If you were going to make a movie like this, Taika Waititi would be the person to make it. I think
so too. I think so too. So there's my casting and remake of Time Bandits 2020. Any changes you guys would have or whatever?
No, but you never know. I mean, you should submit this somewhere, because I think on IMDb it says that a Time Bandits TV show is still post-production on Terry Gilliam's page. So who knows?
Yeah. So you might,
Hold on. Terry, you there? Terry? Yeah, Terry's going to join us, guys. So, and curse me out for my casting. What the fuck is that? Who are you going to cast these people?
Yeah.
But any other thoughts on Time Bandits, guys? Like,
It made
So
it made
Heidi,
me.
your first viewing.
Yeah, it made me want to go watch all the other Terry Gilliam movies. So,
Same.
so I think I might have, especially the Fisher King. I haven't seen that since it came out, and such a great cast great Mercedes Rule won the Oscar. It's just an amazing role because I think a lot
Robin
of
Williams is great in it. Yes.
yeah, I think a lot of Terry Gilliam movies are not really great where women are concerned.
Okay,
But her character in that movie is absolutely incredible. So, I'm sure it was the script, but at least one great woman in a Terry Gilliam movie. So, but yeah, he's great. He's one of the great directors and one of a kind, never to be repeated. And all of his films reward continued reviewing.
Yeah, I definitely am going to finish the trilogy. I'm going to watch Brazil.
Yeah, you should. We should come back and do a Brazil and Munchausen
what's funny is
rewatch.
that Samira actually mentioned that, my BBC reporter and broadcaster. She was like, "Oh, Brazil would be brilliant to do." I'm like, I haven't seen it, but yeah. So maybe we'll watch those two and talk about all.
Well, it looks like we're going to be in pandemic mode for a long time, guys. So we have a lot of time to get to a lot of movies.
I'm heading back to work in an hour, so we'll see.
All right.
I just think that this film, the film that made me want to watch next, so I did, because pandemic, was Return to Oz, and that kind of.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So yeah. And it was
They're both super creepy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. So we're going to get out of here. Well, this is probably the shortest one we've ever done. Exactly an hour, I think it is.
Yeah.
Right. Almost an hour. Almost an hour. Amazing. See, we can do this concisely and, just shorter time. I'm going to start this
short. I don't. Nope.
Yeah. No pun intended on that. Why we did this.
I'm just getting really dark here. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Just like the ending of the movie.
Yeah, just like the end of the movie. In fact, you guys, I smell smoke. I gotta go.
Can we add an explosion here?
Something's in my toaster oven.
Yeah. That hot dog. I put it there. Yikes.
Yeah. I'll be Sean Connery. But hope you guys enjoyed. As always, and we have all these people in the chat room. Sorry we didn't get a chance to get your questions. The thousands of questions that we got. Thank you so much, you guys. They don't know. They can't see. So this is also going to be a podcast as well on Comic News Insider. Release that probably Friday or Saturday. Thank you to producer Joe for taking care of that.
And it will be we're live on YouTube. Oh, by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, we got to start doing that.
To say that.
Subscribe,
yeah, like and subscribe.
You gotta hit the bell. Hit the bell.
Yeah, hit the bell.
So, like, subscribe. If you like that one, maybe check out this episode.
Yeah, right. Next, we're going to talk about Willow because that's another great movie that I've watched.
A lot of YouTube.
I've watched about 5 times since we did the Willow episode. Willow.
Yes.
I could watch Mad Mardigan.
That's hilarious.
All day.
Okay, so join us next week where we talk about Rothko. Is it art or just squares? Hey man, it's color squared, whatever. He's got famous. But thank you all for joining my trip down memory lane, one of my favorite movies as a kid, and I look forward to having you all back at some point in the near future. I'm Jimmy Aquino with Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture at comicnewsinsider.com. You can find me online everywhere at Jimmy Aquino. That's JIMMYAQUINO, Instagram, Twitter, etc.
I'm Heidi McDonald. I am Comics Ace on all social media, COMIXACE, and at the beat at comicsbeat.com.
And I am John Hoche, JONHOCHE on all social media.
And I'm Stacey Whittle, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Whittle Waffle. I'm not even going to attempt to spell it with my accent because
All right.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you
guys for joining, and goodbye.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to run. Do you want to take a quick picture?
Yes. I need to stop my live.